Hi friends, and welcome to day 19 of Arthurian April. Yes, I'm aware that we are still a day behind. I promise we're going to catch up. Today we are talking about Yvain, the Knight of the Lion. If that doesn't sound cool, maybe Arthurian stories just aren't for you. Yvain is particularly interesting, which I know I say about all of this stuff, but clearly I find all of this captivating, is particularly cool because we actually can map him back to an actual historical figure. In the 6th century, there was a prince, warrior, someone basically named Owen ap Uriens. And I know you're saying that doesn't sound like Yvain, but the names Owen, O-W-A-I-N, and Yvain, Y-V-A-I-N, are from the same root and the same person. This has to do with Welsh and French and all of that stuff and how things change over time. His father, Uriens, is associated also, along with Yvain, of the kingdom of Reged, which is what is now the south of Scotland, the north of England. And these myths and histories basically morph over time and all become part of Yvain's story. Despite the fact that in many of our stories, parentage is all over the place, Uriens remains the father of Yvain almost always across more than 1,200 years. His mother in the earlier stories, including some of the Welsh triads, is Modron, a sorceress very often conflated with Morgan in some cases, but typically associated with Brocelion, the magical forest. Modron's story can be pretty horrible, but I'll gloss over that for now. Either way, Yvain is just as old as the oldest figures that we have and even appears in the Mabinogion as well as other Welsh stories. In Chrétien de Troyes, it's a very similar conceit to what we see in Eric and Enid, where there's a knight, he's in this particular case avenging his cousin, and he comes across and rescues some damsels, including Laudine, who is a widow who he falls in love with, and her servant Lunette. Lunette is not to be confused with Lynette, who is associated with Sir Gareth. You know, the last thing we needed was other more confusing names in these stories. They meet, so Laudine and he fall in love, but Sir Gawain comes along and he's like, hey buddy, you know, we need to do some adventuring here. You don't want to just stick being married to your wife all the time and, you know, ew. Laudine's not super happy about this, and she essentially gives him an ultimatum. He can go and do his adventures and be the chivalric hero, but he has to come back within a year. You probably see where this is going already. He doesn't come back within a year, and Laudine essentially just bars him from even coming anywhere near. Yvain does not take this well, and in one of many instances in Arthurian stories, he actually goes completely mad. He goes so mad that he is basically living in the forest, completely naked, with literally and overwhelmed with grief. Gawain, man, bad ideas, always the bad ideas. Morgan saves him and basically helps him to overcome his madness. I like the idea that they maybe had a really long therapy session, and he's able to then return and win back the hand of his wife, especially because he saves her maid servant, Lunette, from being burned at the stake, which seemed like a very common possibility for any woman that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. As those adventures ensue, he actually befriends a lion, and this lion and he become absolute best buds. Some of the later tales say that you could always tell that it was Yvain's lion because he had a collar and he essentially walked around like a trained animal and was his second hand, basically. It's actually also pretty easy to identify Sir Yvain in illuminated manuscripts and illustrations of the period, which is not always the case with some of the other folks, because he has said lion at his feet. You might be asking, lions in Great Britain? How did that happen? Sadly, there are no more lions in the British Isles, but there were. But we're talking extinct like 12,000 years ago. Now, it's very possible that the Romans potentially brought lions to England as well, and certainly between the Bible and a lot of other kind of mythologies familiar to folks, having a lion in the wilderness wasn't that much of a stretch. One of the things I love, of course, about this story is not just the fact that we have a familiar, essentially, running around with a knight, helping him fight off evildoers. But we have another story of a married knight and the things that he must do in order to balance the love of his life with his life as a knight. Yvain is a lot less stupid than Eric. So he makes a mistake, and obviously he's absolutely devastated that he was so completely absorbed with the knight life that he ended up forgetting his own wife. But again, the fact that we leave space for these characters to have mental illness, and even though, granted, it is treated as something that can be magicked away, it's pretty important because I think it's a wonderful contrast to the sort of toxic masculinity that we so often associate with the chivalric period. For my purposes, if you read Queen of Fury, you'll know that both Yvain figures as a minor character, and so does his lion named Melik. And Melik is raised from a cub by Yvain, and Yvain is sort of one of the folks that lives in Avilion and is very good friends with Weefart and kind of grows up around her. You do get to see a whole lot of him in book 3 as he is part of Morgan's larger story, and they befriend each other in the forest of Broceliande. So I hope you can now imagine in your mind's eye, as we continue to make our way through many of these characters, this fantastic and stunning image of a knight with his lion and the depth of which a character who has been around for a very long time can still give us today.